how many plugins do you really need to mix a song? Now, I mean, realistically, I could probably get away with 14, maybe 14 different plugins to actually mix a song in the box. You know, EQ, something like something for dynamics, so like a transient designer or something like that, a nice compressor, a something like the SPL PQ, which the FabFilter Pro Q3, which has a frequency analyzer in it, so you've got the analyzer, Soothe for de-essing and kind of taking out those resonance, maybe a dedicated de-esser, reverb, you know, it's a delay. You know, you can have one of each of these tools that can be used. You know, you could squeeze that down to probably around 14 kind of plugins and well be able to mix. It's nice to have multiple different versions of plugins. Like, you know, at the moment, my kind of plugin EQ of choice is the SPL PQ. That's because I've got it in my chain. I'm really enjoying using it out the box. I've got it in the box, and it's kind of like when you know how to use it out the box, it makes using it in the box very similar. When you've got the Avid S4, for instance, you can map it directly to the Avid S4, so it feels like you're on this unit. So you can get a very similar sound because you feel like you're using it as an outboard piece of equipment. So yeah, I don't like, you could probably get away with like 14 plugins. Now, it's nice to chop and change plugins in and out, but you don't necessarily have to have you can use the same EQ on every channel. You know, I have the same kind of, or very similar kind of template of plugins that go on every bus, and then I'll have different plugins on each channel. But on every bus, I like to process buses in certain ways, so I will have certain plugins on that bus for certain purposes. And some plugins I'll have them on the bus, but I won't use them because they're not, you know, like let's say for instance Soothe. I'll have Soothe at the end of every chain pretty much. And I'll even have it on my kick bus, for instance, and it's there just in case. I might not use it, it might not get used, but it's there just in case I need to use it. So really, I would say you only need like 14 plugins. Finding those 14 plugins that are, you know, the ones to use are difficult because, you know, you do chop and change. It's like, you know, get a channel strip. You don't need, for instance, you don't need 20 different channel strips. You know, one channel strip is all you need. You just have that one channel strip on every channel. You don't need you know, have a Neve channel strip and then an API channel strip and then an SSL channel strip, and then, you know, you don't have to have, it's nice to have, yeah, it's cool, have different channel strips on different channels, yeah, but you don't have to have that. You can get away with just one good channel strip. Find the one that you work well with and have that as your channel strip. You know, have Soothe. Soothe is an essential tool. Spiff as well is an essential tool. You know, have a nice tape saturator. You know, I use the Ampex ATR 102 by UAD. I have that pretty much every single bus as one of my first plugins that I go into, and that's, you know, that's a brilliant tool. I then use Heady Amps The Oven. You know, I like that on every channel just for that saturation feel. I love to run it through that. You know, the SPL PQ is my main EQ, so I could honestly get away with maybe 14 plugins. I could quite easily have 14 plugins. Nice reverb, nice delay. You know, I use the SSL X delay, I think it is. Reverb, I use Cinematic Rooms, only because that is my 7.1.2 reverb. And then for stereo reverb, I use the Hitsville reverb by UAD, that new one that's came out. That's really good. That's mainly more for my small rooms. So yeah, I would 100% say you can get away with like 14 plugins. It's just a case of actually finding out which 14 plugins are the plugins that you want to be using, because obviously, you know, it's very hard to go and find each different plugin.